Time to spill the tea with Spicy V.
Welcome to Spill the Tea with Spicy V. Today we are here with Madison McGhee, podcaster, producer, Big Brother fan, and friend. Welcome to the show.
The hottest show on the internet. I'm so excited.
I want to give the listeners like a better understanding of who Madison is. You know what I mean? Get to know you a little bit. So how would you describe yourself?
Annoying.
How did you get to LA?
Oof. Okay, quick. I grew up in West Virginia and then I went to college in South Carolina just to kind of like get away but not get too far. Then I moved to DC, which was very different. Then I moved to Australia. Then I moved to Portland, Oregon. But the dream the whole time was to move to LA. So I don't know why I never did it. And then finally I just did it. And now I'm like, I'll never leave.
I've seen you with your camera, like all over.
Yeah, so I'm a producer, and that is like nobody knows what that means because it can kind of mean anything, I guess. The projects kind of range from like TV, scripted films, podcasts, and so that takes me all over the world.
And I have to ask about AJ because you already know he's probably going to watch us and be like, how did you guys meet? How long have you been together? Spill the tea.
So we met through a mutual friend who was like his best friend and just someone that I kind of knew. And like the day we met, he invited me to his birthday dinner, which I was like, that's kind of weird. I don't know you. Like, why would I come to like your intimate birthday dinner? And I ended up going. And then we were like inseparable since.
Last July 11th marked the 20-year anniversary of your dad's murder. Right? And you want answers, right? You're like, you're going to start a podcast. You started a podcast. It's streaming on all the listening platforms. You're investigating the murder of your dad, John Cornelius McGhee. Like, this is some shit.
Yeah, Ice Cold Case is essentially like a documentary, but in podcast form. So you're following me as I'm investigating my dad's murder. And it's almost like unique in that obviously it was my dad, and you don't really see a lot of shows like that on Netflix or on podcasts. But also I am just, an individual working with a couple friends to put together this show. So that kind of was a unique perspective in that we aren't a production company. We don't have the resources that a lot of these big companies have.
Can you describe the experience in 3 words, like just doing all of this?
Overwhelming, exhausting, and fulfilling.
Okay, I like that. When did this journey start?
Yeah, I think it really started when I was 16. So like 11 years ago, I had like this epiphany when I found out that my dad was murdered, because I didn't know for 10 years that I wanted to do something with this, but I didn't know exactly what it would be. And then about 3.5 years ago was when I really was like, oh, I want to do a podcast or some form of documentary to actually put it out in the world on a big scale. And so that's when that journey started, which took me on this massive roller coaster. But I think about 3.5 years ago was when I really decided.
How does it feel like releasing so much like personal information, like to the world, like your friends? Like, has that been hard or has it been like relief?
Both. It's been really strange. People who have known me my whole life don't know half of these stories that I'm telling in this podcast.
Yeah.
So that's made it like really strange. I try to compartmentalize a little bit. So when we're recording, I'm just like really thinking about the podcast and the show, and I'm not thinking about who's listening or anything like that. But then once it's out and I'm getting like text messages from friends, I'm like, oh, you listen to my podcast? Like I didn't think about you when I was making this podcast.
Yes. What can we expect without giving anything away? Like what does it lead up to in the last 30 days?
Yeah, so the beginning of the show, what you've heard so far has been very like introductory. Like we haven't even gotten into the nitty-gritty of this case.
Woo!
So episode 1 is like, this is what happened according to the police. Episode 2 is like, well, here's a little bit more about me, the person walking you through this journey. Episode 3, we dive into our first suspects and we go into who they are, how they knew my dad, what their affiliation was, why they could have done this, why they would have wanted to do this. And so it gets really interesting. And for the next few episodes, we're going to take it sort of one group of suspects at a time and go through why it could have been them. And so this is when I really want listeners to kind of put their detective hat on and listen, to be thinking about and listening for things that sound off, clues, tips. Oh, if you live in the area, I remember this, or I remember hearing about this. And so it's about to get, if you like to watch these true crime docs and kind of like try to solve the case, this is when you're going to want to take out a pen and paper.
Okay. I love that. Oh my God. Can you answer that question so perfectly? Like, that is exactly what I wanted to hear. Like, I am in it. I am in it. In the last month, like, has everything gone as planned? Like, as far as releasing the episodes, like the reaction?
No.
What?
No. I mean, the reaction, better than expected. And I'm so grateful. It's been amazing.
Good.
The podcast... Not so much. We've definitely had some ups and downs logistically of like, just timing. I'm wearing a lot of hats in this. Yeah. I'm writing the show. We have to record the show. I'm managing the team. We had a launch party. I'm also working. I bought a house. There's just a lot going on.
So much.
So like, for example, tomorrow, episode 3 comes out, but it's not finished yet. And I just finished 5 minutes ago writing episode 4.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, you know, it's a lot of putting things together at the very last minute, the 11th hour, but it's all coming together, and then we put it out and everyone loves it, and that's great.
The billboards near the police station, like the multiple different kinds, like we have to talk about this. How many billboards do you have?
So there are 7 billboards.
I'm going to put some up for everyone to see. This is insane.
I really did not mess around. That was actually before we even had any words written on a page and we knew that we were going to do this podcast. The first thing I did was call my friend and say, hey, do you have a billboard guy? Like, I want billboards. Yes. Like, I don't know when this podcast is coming out. I don't know what it's going to be, but I know that as soon as it does, I want motherfucking billboards. You can't pull into the prosecutor's office without seeing the billboard. It's right there.
Have you gotten any like attention from the billboards? Like, has anyone reached out or like?
Yeah, so I got actually an email this morning from the local news station who, I guess somebody, their news director or someone, their web director emailed me saying like, hey, we saw your billboards and like, we remember this case. Like, we remember when this happened.
My God.
And we'd love to do like an interview with you to promote your podcast and kind of get the word out about this case. So they're doing exactly what I wanted them to be doing, which is great.
You mentioned your launch party. What the world was that? I can't believe how lit that party was. You had it at Todrick's house, right?
Yeah. Todrick was like the most gracious. I was like, hey, I'm looking for a venue. Like, I'll pay you to do my party at your house. And he was like, just have your party at my house. And it was so special because he got to be there. Like, it was just really nice to have him there. But yeah, it was at his house and it was incredible.
It looked incredible, like from the bar, the setup.
Shout out to my party planner, Mallory. She I just would spew out ideas and she made everything happen.
You had everyone there, like literally, like I love to see it. Tiff, Holly, Jack, Kylan, Shuby, Claire, like literally everyone was there. It was super cool. How do you know all of these people?
Honestly, shout out my Big Brother podcast. I don't really do it anymore, but that was sort of the beginning of a lot of these friendships that have since just transpired into like day-to-day relationships that I have with people.
I know you're a huge Big Brother fan. So we got to get into it for the fans right now. Who's your favorite American player?
Ever?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's tough.
You can name a few. If it's too hard, you can name a few.
I mean, I think Rachel Riley is like iconic.
Of course.
And I love that she was like such a wild card on her first season and like came back with no change at all and then won. I'm like, y'all are dumb for like and that's like just iconic. Like that is, to me, it's just like so iconic.
Do you like all reality shows or is it like Big Brother?
It started with Big Brother. I recently got into Survivor and then honestly, shout out me, at the very, very end of last year, I started watching Vanderpump Rules.
Oh no.
And I made a 2023 prediction that Vanderpump Rules would be the #1 thing in this year. And people thought I was crazy. It's on my Instagram. Like I posted it on like the last day of the year. I was like, my predictions list is that Vanderpump Rules is going to be in. And it was #1 on my list. And then, Sandoval.
Okay, so back to the podcast. So we're dropping episode 3. And it's been so good. We're following like your dad's murder. Like what has been like the most shocking thing so far?
Majority of the story in episode 3 is probably one of the most shocking stories that I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my God.
And it's very interesting, but also sad. And it's just a crazy, you can't believe that this happens in real life kind of story.
Was it not until you were 16 that you found out the truth? Yeah,
I didn't know until I was 16. And yeah, so that was kind of a crazy, basically I saw my cousin Omar and I had a weird feeling and I asked my mom if Omar was there when my dad had a heart attack. And my mom like broke down and was like, oh, actually your dad didn't have a heart attack. He was murdered. And weird that you would say that because a lot of people think Omar was there. And so it was like this weird, like, how did I know that when I didn't know kind of situation? Yeah. And that was my dad's birthday in 2012.
Like, why, like, besides the obvious, like, should right now everyone go listen to this podcast?
Because you're probably going to spend all day scrolling through TikTok, watching whatever you're watching, and it's going to probably pop up some true crime thing about some white girl in the middle of nowhere, and that's very sad, and I hope that they find her. However, you're not gonna see BIPOC people murdered on your TikTok. You're not gonna see these cold cases pop up on that comedy true crime podcast you're listening to. My dream is that like some friend group in Kansas is like, oh my God, did you hear the new episode of Ice Cold Case? Well, I found this article and then I found this. And that's like the dream, is that the internet rallies around this the way that they've rallied around other cases and utilizes their millennial FBI skills to solve this case. This is the time to do this, that something is about to shift and that we're going to like hear something new or find out something, and this is all going to take a turn. So like, I'm just really encouraging people. Like, I love this stuff. I'm a true crime fan through and through. I wish that I had listened to Serial as it was coming out. I wish that I had gotten in at the beginning of like all of these other cases that eventually get solved. Like, this is your opportunity to like hear this in real time and not go back in a year from now and be like, oh, I missed this. How did I miss this?
Yes.
Like, you can listen right now and kind of be part of it.
And like, just going back to what you said earlier, is like how you're literally curating it as we go. Like, it makes me feel like, holy crap, like we all really can be a part of this. Like, we are a part of this. Like, it's not done. Like, it's now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that being
this
said,
summer, it's the podcast of the summer.
Yes, the podcast of the summer. No, it really is. Like, I'm so glad we've done this interview because I was already so into it just from listening and everything. But just having this conversation, I'm like, so motivated, and like even my voice I feel like is changing right now because I'm like, yo, this is like some shit right now.
Oh, well, I have a question for you.
I'm ready.
And you already know what it is. Why did you not vote for my boy, Braden?
Such a good motherfucking question. Such a good motherfucking question. I will tell you right now that me and Rohan almost voted for Braden. Right before we voted, we both looked at each other and said, we're voting for Braden. For some reason, and this is a true story, we both changed our vote last second. You know, the speech kind of got me. I felt a little betrayed, but I also betrayed Braden. Like, I feel like Ty got me with that, but I have no good excuse.
The way that he will get over it before I get over it.
Fair enough. Our first fight, like, I'm dead. It's amazing, and I'm so proud of you. Everyone's so proud of you.
Thank you. I love you. Yes, come visit anytime.
Okay, I'm holding you to that, sis.
Click that subscribe button for more spice.